Again, it just tells the story of it's the evil and the ugliness of people's hearts these days is everywhere.
This is Franky Rose's Think Tank. Here's your host, Franky Rose.
Hey guys, welcome to the Think Tank. So the big question, what happened this morning in court? So, I know, right, Pam? I have no idea what's going on. I did all my running around, got myself situated for a few days anyways. So yeah, welcome you guys. So do you know what? I'm impatient. I want to know what happened. Okay, here we go, guys.
The court will review the matter that came to the court's attention today and review the process by which that matter was addressed. Again, this morning, the marshal handed to the court a note from one of the jurors. The note read, one of the jurors, and that juror is identified in the note, discussed something about the case, and it was all over social media, said it was like Gone Girl.
Brutal.
A brief mention. Several other jurors said, don't discuss this. Now that note is now a court exhibit number 2. The court took the opportunity to discuss with counsel the process by which we will proceed in determining whether one or more jurors needed to be excused.
I thought it would be everybody.
The court thereafter closed the courtroom. However, there is a transcript generated of the proceeding that was conducted during the closed courtroom. That transcript with the names of the jurors redacted should be available because the court is ordering that transcript to be expedited, hopefully by Monday morning, again with the jurors' names redacted. The court questioned the juror who authored the note, and that juror verified the information in the note. The court then questioned the juror who was identified as the juror who made the comments. That juror indicated that the comments were made. The court indicated to that juror, juror number 186, that the reference made to Gone Girl and the fact that the case has received extensive social media attention may have influenced other jurors to possibly not afford the state or the defense, one or the other,
This is horrible.
a fair trial,
What?
an impartial trial. The court also indicated to that juror that the reference to Gone Girl, if any other juror was familiar with the film, may have influenced that juror to start to hear the evidence in terms of their familiarity with the film. The court then dismissed juror number 186 and thereafter proceeded to question each juror individually specifically
she's
whether
gone.
each one of those jurors had heard the comments. Some did, some did not. Whether, if they had heard the comments, they were able to still afford the state and the defense a fair and impartial trial. Without exception, every juror indicated that they would be able to afford the state and the defense a fair and impartial trial. Every juror indicated that they would not draw conclusions about the state's case or the defense's case prior to both the state and the defense resting and their charge to begin to deliberate. Those jurors also indicated they will still maintain their ability to avoid media coverage and social media coverage about the case. Again, every accused has the right to a speedy and public trial before an impartial jury in the state and district wherein that crime shall have been committed, the Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution. In closing the court made every effort to make sure that even though the courtroom was closed, the transcript of the proceeding will be available to the public. We started this morning with the continuation of the cross-examination of Kristen Maydell. What we're going to do is ask that the jury be brought out. That Ms. Maydell may be brought in.
Okay. All right. You're going. What an ass. Okay, I'm here. Good. Holy, that's not what I expected. I expected more.
Does counsel stipulate to the presence of the jurors?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, we continue with the cross-examination of Ms. Maydell by the defense.
Good morning, Ms. Maydell.
Good morning.
So there were a lot of different exhibits that you were shown, and you went through there were multiple reports that you prepared. Is that right?
Yes.
And you actually were given different samples at different times and compared them to reports and deconvolutions that already had been done previously, right?
Yes.
And I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't go back and start from scratch each time you were asked to compare another sample with your earlier work. Am I correct about that?
Well, it depends on the sample. I might have had to do a new decon if I DNR'd the first one to do a new comparison.
And the first reports you did were on June 1st, 2019. Is that right?
Around that date, yes.
You were asked at that point to examine certain materials and swabs and other things early on in this case while it was still in an early development state, correct?
You're looking
Yes.
at.
One of the things you were asked to do early on is to determine whether or not there was any
Yeah, I'm confused.
any DNA in certain parts of the Suburban, right?
Yes, I did have samples from the Suburban.
And as I understand it, one of the swabs that you were given to test was from early on was of the WeatherTech floor liner in the rear cargo area of the Chevy Suburban. Is that right?
That sounds familiar, yes.
Well,
And you were also given other materials to test, correct?
Lots of materials, yes.
And so there's some of them, some of your reports actually move around from materials that you haven't even been asked about yet, right?
That is correct, yes.
So I'm just going to show you one portion from your first report, which you called, your initial report is just called DNA report, right?
Yes,
And as I heard Mr. McGinnis the other day, if you were asked to look at another report, there were supplemental reports,
Yeah, we just
right?
delete.
yes, that's how they're labeled, so we can tell the difference.
And I think there were as many as, I think 19 or 20 supplemental reports, right?
19, yes.
Okay, and with regard to the initial review of the WeatherTech floor liner from the back of the Suburban, you had labeled that as 42S1 in the lab?
If I could refer to it, yes, I don't recall
All right,
exactly.
well,
but-
I'm going to show you a page because like you said, there were other things that you examined that weren't even relevant to either New Canaan or the vehicle, right?
Correct, yes.
So I'm just,
So yeah, sorry to interrupt this for a second, but yeah, if anybody comes in here and there's no hammer needed because zap, banished. That's not why we're here. You know, I don't mind polite conversation, but no, we don't do the 30 seconds this and this 3 minutes out. No, it's just like, bye.
just going to show you if I may approach. I'm going to show you what has been known as J for identification. Just have you look at that for a moment.
Your Honor, may I see Jay? I haven't seen.
I'll be happy to show before I ask a question, I will be happy to show the state. Recognize that?
Yes, I mean, it's taken out of
Yeah, we won't go there.
because it has my
Right.
signature on it, yes, but
Hola. Hola.
And that is your signature on there?
yes,
And we understand there are other conclusions you reached about other items, but in that initial report, that was your conclusion with regard to that particular test of the WeatherTech cargo area, right?
yes.
I would offer it, Your Honor.
Back at you, Tracy.
Well, Judge, I'm going to object actually because this is outside the scope of direct at this point, and frankly, I don't think that if we're referring to Jenniferdulos' Suburban, I don't think that that's where this is from.
In other words, the exhibit doesn't reflect the sample taken from the Suburban. Is that state's convention?
There's two Suburbans, Judge. We haven't gotten there yet in the case, and this is not from the Suburban that's referenced in the questions.
Can you look at your report to determine if 42S1 was from the Suburban in New Canaan? Do you have your reports in
I
front of
don't have
you?
my reports. My
they're
reports would not give me
continuing.
any more information than that.
Would not give you any more information
No,
than
you
that.
need to go back to the submitting agency
Here we go.
RFA for the lab to say where that came from. I would just have the same description on that on my report.
All right.
So the objection is sustained.
Yep,
Didn't you
better call
yesterday
Paul.
testify specifically as to 42S1 as being one of those samples that you tested?
I testified to so many yesterday. Honestly, I would have to recall the testimony if he asked me about that one.
All right.
I know,
Just have
man.
a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 19 for identification and ask whether or not, if you look at the second page, whether that refreshes your recollection as to whether or not that was one of the items that was discussed with you yesterday.
The judge said last
Judge,
night,
I'm gonna
though,
object.
15, 20 minutes. That's
We
what
did
he
not
said
discuss
last
this item
night.
yesterday.
Well, the representation is that the state did not introduce that yesterday. So, even if, well, the witness, if the state did not introduce
Yeah,
that
3,000
evidence
in the
yesterday, the
chat that
witness
one
could not
time,
have seen that yesterday.
Phenomenal.
I believe that was one of the reports that was given to the witness to refresh her recollection.
So, the state's representation is that apparently that testimony concerning that document was not elicited yesterday. Is that correct, Attorney McGinn?
That's correct, Judge. And if I can have a moment with Attorney Schoenauer, perhaps I can clear this up.
This guy's a worm. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
going to move on, Your Honor.
Thank you.
what a great idea. Move right on out of the court, buddy.
So all of the
Agreed.
exhibits that you examine, all of the laboratory work that you did with regard to what was taken from the home in New Canaan, all of the, whatever findings you made, either there was an inconclusive result or it eliminated Michelle Troconis's DNA from being a contributor. Isn't that right?
Yes, I do not recall having a positive association.
Meaning it was, if there was no positive association, meaning it was a negative association, right?
Or inconclusive or insufficient.
No, when it came to the,
That is.
right, either it was insufficient for you to make a conclusion, or it was inconclusive, or she was eliminated, correct?
Correct.
There was no positive association whatsoever from what was located in the house at 6 Wells Lane, correct?
Correct.
And when it came to all of your examination of the Suburban, the Chevy Suburban from New Canaan, all of those results were negative as to Michelle Troconis. Isn't that right?
Or insufficient or inconclusive.
Now, I just want to ask you a couple of questions to understand a little bit about transfer DNA. We got into that a little bit yesterday. We talked a little bit
Oh
about
my God,
primary
that
and
is
secondary
so cute,
transfer,
Candy.
correct?
We did, yes.
And you said you didn't like to use the word touch DNA because sometimes things are transferred without actually physically touching. Is that right?
Correct. The forensic communities doesn't want to refer to every little bit of DNA that may be left on the surface as touch, because we don't know, that would be implying that somebody actually did touch it to leave the DNA, which is not necessarily true.
So in fact, as we speak now, it's possible that some of our DNA is actually floating through the air just by virtue of our speaking. Isn't that right?
Yes, that is right.
And as I indicated that yesterday, you can test for as little as 3 cells. Isn't that right?
We can test for something that comes undetected on our quant. When we test how much we think of DNA we have, and we still can try and amp it. Doesn't mean we're going to get a profile, but we can try.
So in other words, like anything, if you were to swipe this microphone, even if nobody touched it, it is conceivable from your experience that there might be some DNA on that, right?
It's possible, yes.
And it might be detected when it's run through the lab as opposed to you can't see anything on it, right?
Correct, yes. You can't see DNA.
And as I also asked you, I believe we got into it a very little bit yesterday, your DNA analysis did not distinguish between whether something came from a liquid such as DNA, so blood, or from skin cells. Isn't that right?
Yes, we cannot distinguish that.
So when we're talking about transfer DNA, would it be likely or at least possible that if one person handed a cake box to another person, that there might be transfer of DNA from the person who's giving the cake box to the person who's receiving?
Objection, no foundation for the hypothetical, Judge.
That's sustained.
If I were to ask you to assume that one person handed a cake box to another person with their bare hands, and the other person accepted that box and then took it into their home, would it be possible that the first person who
What the
did
frick is this guy talking about?
giving of that cake box their DNA would end up in the hands of the second
I
person?
object. No foundation for the hypothetical.
Well, question straddles a hypothetical and just a basic question about transfer DNA. As a hypothetical, it does not accurately reflect a scenario that has been presented.
No, but it does.
Well, the court has not finished.
Yeah.
Because the court recalls no evidence about a cake box. So the court sees this not so much as a hypothetical, it fails as a hypothetical, but as a general question
He
about how
really is.
DNA is transferred. The court will overrule the objection.
So if someone touches a cake box, gives it to someone else, and then that cake box winds up inside a house, would the person's DNA be on that cake box?
Yes.
Yes, it would, possibly, if he left DNA behind.
All right. And would that also, if the person took the cake box in the location where the person, the giver, had been holding the box, is it possible that some of the DNA would also be transferred to the hands of the recipient?
That is possible.
And if that second person then opened a doorknob, would it be possible that some of the transferred DNA would end up on that
I
doorknob?
object, Your Honor.
Well, now this is starting to sound as if the door is being opened to a hypothetical, which has not been sufficiently articulated, so the objection is sustained.
Well, I will submit, Your Honor, that this is a factual, there will
Oh
be
my
this
God,
testimony.
man.
The fact that this witness is called before that testimony is elicited would not require, if I'm phrasing it as a hypothetical, and I'm representing there will be this testimony will come at a later date regarding this.
Well, the hypothetical would have to begin this
That's my
way.
thoughts.
Assume certain facts,
All right.
and those facts already should have been introduced. From the assumption of the certain facts, you may add another fact, but those facts can't come down from the heavens as a hypothetical when none of the facts have been introduced. So sustained.
Would you also assume for purposes of my hypothetical that a person hands a piece of Easter Bunny chocolate, breaks it off, and hands it to the second person, and that person then puts it in their mouth? Would there be a possible, I'm not finished with my question. Would there be a possibility that DNA would be transferred to that second person's hands based on that scenario?
I object. Same objection.
Well, this is walking back the hypothetical, but any extension of the chocolate candy will then don the clothing of a hypothetical, and that would probably run into an objection, which the court would probably sustain. So the court will allow the chocolate candy example. The objection is overruled.
Terry, can you repeat the scenario?
Yes, if a person was holding a chocolate, these chocolate Easter bunnies, right?
This guy in
And
this
they break off
scenario.
a piece of that with their hand, and they hand it to the second person. And that second person then puts that candy, the chocolate in their mouth. Is it possible that the DNA would transfer from the first person, the one who's holding the chocolate bunny, to the hands of the recipient of that chocolate candy?
It's possible.
All right. So whenever you transfer DNA from one person to another, anything that person, the second person touches might also contain some of those skin cells of the first person, right?
It's possible, yes.
And it would be enough so that it would be detectable through a swab and then placed through the STR mix program. Is that right?
Objection calls for speculation.
Well, the question is, would it be detectable? That's the question.
Yes.
Well, the court would assume that the answer is going to be articulated by the expert. Either that, yes, that's possible, or yes with an explanation, or no with an explanation. So the court will overrule the objection.
Do you remember the question?
Will it be detected?
Yeah.
It all depends on how much DNA was transferred from the first time to the second person, and how long the time frame was in between. I couldn't say that it would definitely be detected.
Oh, not necessarily definitely, but it's possible to be detected.
If there was enough DNA there, yes.
And you said over what period of time? Is there a minimum or maximum period of time that DNA disappears from a surface?
No, again, it's all the different situations, what kind of DNA it is, what kind of elements it's exposed to, how long, how hard it was pushed on that material, friction, the kind of surface it is, if it's porous. There's so many situations. I couldn't tell you how long.
Would weather affect that in terms of it being, if it's warmer as opposed to like now it's snowing out, would that affect it?
Oh yeah, all weather, yes.
And so warm weather would be more likely to last longer, is that right?
No, warm weather would also increase moisture and degradation of bacteria.
And how long would it take for DNA to degrade in warm weather?
There's no time frame. Again, it's how much DNA is there, what kind of DNA is there, how hot the temperature is. I couldn't give you a time frame.
Have you been able to recover DNA for something that's been exposed to moist weather for 1 or 2 days?
I don't know that I've ever have a sample that I specifically did that, no.
All right, what about it indoors? Inside a home, would it last longer if it's not exposed to the elements?
It could.
I have no further questions. Well, if I could just hold on for 1 second.
I bet you she just wants to run.
So I just want to be clear that when you did your testing, some of you testified that some of the swabs were in fact where a contributor was the subject of the toothbrush swab, correct? In the comparison you did.
That I matched the toothbrush to some swabs?
Yes.
Yes, I did, yes.
All right, and so that we're not talking around it, if we were to assume that the toothbrush belonged to Jenniferdulos, which is one of the things you did assume, right?
Yes.
Right, then you still can't tell whether the DNA that you
oh, no doubt.
You examined and deconvoluted using STR mix came from the mouth, from blood, or from skin cells, right?
The DNA that was on the toothbrush?
Well, we assume the DNA in the toothbrush must have come from inside the mouth, right?
Well, yes. Again, I don't understand the question. What DNA?
Well, we're assuming that came from somebody brushing their teeth, right?
Well, yes, but I can't say that it definitely came from her mouth.
Of course not. So I'm saying that the rest of the swabs that you compared it with, you don't know whether the source came from the mouth, the hand, that is touch, the skin cells, or from a bodily fluid, correct?
So you're talking about all the other evidence?
All the other examinations.
Correct. I can't tell you where that DNA came from.
All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, my God.
Their redirect.
Yes, Judge. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Maydell, yesterday you were asked a series of questions about whether or not the swabbings which were submitted to the Division of Scientific Services were subsequently tested for confirmatory blood. Do you recall those questions?
I do, yes.
Are there certain protocols that the laboratory has with respect to whether or not they're going to be testing for confirmatory blood?
Yes, there's a typical protocol where typically confirmatory testing for blood is done when it's a homicide case. These samples came in as a missing persons case, and a lot of them had the screening test for KM already done. So we don't repeat a test that's already been done by somebody that we do. So that's why we did not perform the KM testing again. And then also, we don't want to
Your Honor, I'm going to object because she had testified yesterday, this was outside her area, that she just is aware that someone else does it. So for her to be the one to explain it, she's the wrong witness for that. She was limited to DNA.
Well, she's not talking about DNA. She's talking about lab process. And she's been at the lab for 20 years and is a supervisor. So the objection is overruled.
I think I left off that we also don't want to do extra screening testing or confirmatory testing if we have limited samples. So we really want to make sure that we're processing as much of that swab for the actual DNA test and not use some on a confirmatory or a screening test.
And so, as I understand your testimony, when a confirmatory test is done, more of the sample has to be used for that particular test. Is that correct?
Objection leading.
Well, because of the technical nature of the testimony, the court is going to allow some leeway on leading questions because, quite frankly, at times, counsel is making sure through the leading question that he or she understands the technology themselves. Overruled.
You may answer the question.
Yes, so if we were to go do another either KM or confirmatory test, we would have to take a cutting of that swab, which would then reduce the size sample that went to DNA.
Thank you. I have nothing additional.
Just very briefly, you already testified that you would not, some of the testing that was done was confirmed as blood, correct?
No.
Nothing?
We did screening testing for blood. We didn't do confirmatory.
All right.
In the stuff we talked about yesterday.
All right. So if we were, again, if some of the screening was done, someone confirmed that it in fact was blood for some of these swabs, right?
Not that I'm aware of. We just did screening.
All right. But you testified yesterday that you would never come into a courtroom and testify that a presumptive test was sufficiently scientifically reliable for you to swear that it was blood, right?
I object outside the scope.
Well, the testimony yesterday, well, the first question addressed whether or not there was confirmatory testing. The second question addressed what was testified to yesterday concerning this witness testifying that she would never come into a courtroom and say that a certain substance was blood just based on a screening. So that testimony went in yesterday. The court would allow it, overruled.
Yes, I testified yesterday that I would never testify to a screening test being confirmatory for blood, and I'm not saying I'm doing that now.
You just use it as, you would agree that KM, which I think you just talked about, you call that a screening, it's a presumptive test, right?
We call it a screening test, yes.
All right, and that's so that you avoid the necessity of having to prove that something is blood or not blood, right?
No, we don't necessarily not want to prove that it's blood. We just want to see if something possibly can be blood, so then we pass it on for DNA testing.
So if you would agree with me that at least blood, if you were able to retrieve it, would have DNA, right?
Yes.
But an object, just because it tests positive presumptively for KM, would not necessarily mean that the DNA came from blood. That's my point.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
I have nothing, Judge.
Maybe I'll thank you, Mr.
Oh, I bet you she's relieved.
Oh, and Judge, just for the record, we are going to be recalling Ms. Maydell later.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the state would call Mark Davison, or I'm sorry, Davison. May I have a moment with counsel, Your Honor? You just have one moment, Your Honor.
Madam Clerk.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God or upon penalty of perjury?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Mark Davison, MARK, DAVISON,
And your affiliation?
Connecticut State Police.
Thank you.
You may be seated.
Good afternoon. Your Honor, may I inquire? Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Fine, ma'am. Thank you.
Sir, are you currently working with the state police?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your current position, please?
I'm currently the commanding officer of the Office of Administrative Services. I'm a lieutenant colonel.
And how long have you worked for the Connecticut State Police?
Just about 18 years now.
And could you please briefly just describe some of your career path with the Connecticut State Police, please?
Yes, I started out on patrol in Troop G in Bridgeport. I worked on patrol for 3 years. Took a test for the Major Crime Squad. I spent 9 years with the Western District Major Crime Squad, primarily a little time as a street detective, 2 years as a crime scene detective. I was promoted to sergeant during that time period. I supervised the criminal investigative unit up at Troop L in Litchfield, and then I was the supervisor of the crime scene van for the next approximately 5 years. Subsequent to that, I was promoted to lieutenant. I ran a barracks up at Troop L for 2.5 years, was promoted to captain. I was the commanding officer of the academy for 2 classes, took 1.5 years, a short period of time at Western District as the acting commanding officer and promoted to lieutenant colonel. And I've been up at headquarters for the last 1.5 years.
And briefly, could you describe some of your educational background?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering from the United States Naval Academy and a Master of Forensic Science from the University of New Haven.
At the University of New Haven, did you specialize in a particular topic?
Part of my education there consisted of research, which I did on bloodstain pattern analysis specific to area of origin reconstructions and measurement error, and an independent study relative to conducting bloodstain pattern analysis.
What exactly is bloodstain pattern analysis?
The bloodstain pattern analysis is an examination of the size, shape, distribution of bloodstains in order to determine the mechanisms that created them. So it can be used in certain circumstances to determine sequence, origin, position, location, determine a mechanism that created the patterns, support or refute testimony, or eliminate certain circumstances that could not have happened.
Could you explain some of your training and education that you received specific to blood pattern analysis?
Specific to blood stain pattern analysis, I have approximately 600 hours of training. That training consists of 2 basic courses that I was a co-instructor on, 2 advanced courses in blood stain pattern analysis, a course in report writing and documentation, an advanced course in fluid dynamics related to blood stain pattern analysis, an advanced course related to fabric, blood stain pattern analysis on fabrics, and a BPA level 2 course. In addition to that, I'm a member of the International Association of Blood Stain Pattern Analysts. Since 2014, I've attended the last 9 training conferences, which are 4-day conferences related to blood stain analysis and other topics. In addition to that, I have in totality 1,250 hours of training relative to death investigation and crime scene investigation. That includes my blood stain training.
And with respect to teachings, have you held any teaching positions?
I'm currently an adjunct professor at the University of New Haven and Central Connecticut State University. I've taught for the last 8 years at the University of New Haven, graduate and undergraduate level courses in bloodstain analysis, crime scene investigation, forensic technology, and introduction to forensic science, and an officer-involved shooting course at Central Connecticut State University.
And have you conducted blood pattern analysis before?
Yes.
About how many times?
I've worked on or consulted on approximately 42 cases relative to blood stain pattern analysis. My experience relative to blood stain cases is approximately 130 cases. I've written or peer reviewed reports on blood stain pattern analysis approximately 25 times.
And was this in your capacity as a Connecticut State Police Trooper?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you testified concerning your results before?
Yes.
About how many times?
4 times.
Have you testified or consulted for the defense before?
I have consulted with defense before.
Okay, and just where was that?
A case out of Michigan.
In May of 2019, were you asked to respond to 69 Wells Lane in New Canaan?
Yes, ma'am.
Who made that request of you?
That was Detective Riley from Western District.
Do you recall what day that call came in?
The 25th of May, 2019.
What did you do?
I responded to the scene approximately 1,300 hours. It's 1 o'clock. Met with the crime scene unit, got a brief from Detective Riley and the team relative to the case they were working on and the specifics that they were asking that I do, which was to examine bloodstains that were located in the garage and on a vehicle that was within the garage at 69 Wells.
And how did you use a blood, can I just call it BPA? Is that okay? If I just say BPA, blood stain pattern analysis?
Fine with me.
Okay. How did you use BPA in evaluating the garage that day?
Relative to the garage in terms of the stains that were located there, a portion of them lent themselves to a reconstruction to determine essentially an origin or an area where a blood source originated from. In addition to that, blood stains on the vehicle also lent themselves to a partial reconstruction relative to the origin of those stains. So in addition to that, I documented blood stains that were located within the garage on that vehicle, and then on a Suburban, another vehicle that was part of that case.
Did you conduct your analysis or reconstruction that day on the 25th?
In terms of documentation, yes, the reconstruction piece was done on the 27th of May.
Why a different day?
At that time, the crime scene unit had been at that scene since the early morning hours of the 25th. So they worked through the night. By the time we cleared on the 25th was approximately 5:30 p.m. So they had been up all night and all day. So the decision was made to return on the 27th in order to continue processing, to put them back on a sleep cycle that was conducive to efficiency and work.
Did you return to 69 Wells on 5/27?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was with you when you returned?
At the scene that day were detectives Riley, Pierston, LaPriori, Hazen, Keppel, Downs, McGavin, and Clabby.
And Jamie Pierston, what was her role?
Detective Pearson had been assigned to do the sketch map of the scene.
Does the sketch map assist you in your analysis?
Some of the measurements do, or assistance with the measurements that I need to take are part of that process. Yes.
Now, did you write a report of your analysis or your findings?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you review any documentation prior to, actually strike that if I may, just have one moment. Did you personally examine, or what did you personally examine prior to writing your report?
I'd just like to have before the answer, if I could just have.
Yes, if I can, Your Honor, I just want Sir, if I can, Your Honor, just with respect to only what you personally observed at a scene, can you please describe to the jury what you physically examined? I'm sorry, it's a really bad question. Let me put it this way. When you're at 69 Wells Lane on 527, what did you look at?
I looked at the interior of the garage, the Range Rover that was in the garage.
Now, did you also look at a Chevy Suburban?
Yes, ma'am.
Where were you when you looked at this Chevy Suburban?
At the New Canaan Police Department on the 27th.
And with respect to the Range Rover that was in the garage, did you examine that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And where were you when you examined that?
At the 69 Wells.
And did you review photographs that were perhaps made by other people involved in this case in your analysis?
Yes.
And based on your findings in your review of that documentation, did you write a report?
Yes.
If I may, Your Honor.
Yes.
You may, Your Honor. Going to try to do that. I may approach the. If I may, Your Honor.
Yes.
I may just approach the clerk. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
So I'm going to show you what's been marked as states 30. Do you recognize that document? If I may, please don't read from it at this time. If you can, I can just ask you some questions about it. If you can read from it, not out loud. Do you recognize that document, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
And with respect to, if I may just approach briefly, Your Honor.
Yes.
With respect to the title, if I may, if it's okay, if I can direct your attention to this particular area. What is the title of your report, please? About that.
Blood-stain pattern analysis.
Thank you. Now, Your Honor, the state will be filing a corrected version of that. I'm offering it as for it in its entirety today. However, there are 2 lines that just need to be redacted for agreement with counsel. I am giving it to counsel for the witness now for use for the testimony to avoid wasting time. I would offer it in its redacted form. I would leave that as ID for now.
As long as I see that copy, then I have no problem with the procedure that the state is proposing.
What's the number?
30?
States 30 will be admitted as a full exhibit, subject to the redaction.
Thank you, Your Honor. And if I could just, I have not spoken to the witness regarding those redactions, so if I could just have some leeway with leading him through that when it comes to that part. Thank you. Sir, is that a copy of your report?
Yes.
Thank you. And specifically on the last page, sir, if you can go to that last page, did you add a supplement to that report as well?
I did.
Okay. And is that your supplement on that report as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Could I have a moment with counsel?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. If I may take it back. With respect to the analysis that you completed for 69 wells, sir, I actually just have a couple of questions with you. With respect to a blood BPA, are there different types of, well, I'll try that. What's an altered stain?
An altered stain is a blood stain with characteristics that indicate a physical change has occurred to it after deposition.
And are there different types of altered stains?
There are a few different types, yes.
What are some types of altered stains?
A type of altered stain is by definition and title called a wipe. So a wipe is an altered stain with characteristics that indicate a change has occurred to it, meaning that an object has moved through blood that has been deposited on the surface.
And that's called a wipe?
It's a wipe.
Okay. Is there another type of altered stain?
Another altered stain is a perimeter stain, which is a blood stain that consists of just its edge characteristics. The central part either having been wholly or partially removed. So there's some change to that blood stain, which can result from a number of different circumstances.
What about a swipe?
A swipe is a blood stain that results from contact between a blood-bearing surface and another surface with indications of relative motion between the surfaces.
And a transfer stain?
A transfer stain is a blood stain that results from the transfer of blood between surfaces.
Now, you had an opportunity to personally review the garage of 69 wells, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And were you aware of the grid pattern sketch map that Sergeant Pearson put together?
Yes.
Okay. And have you examined that and reviewed that as part of your analysis and report writing?
Yes.
Okay. With respect to areas A, B, and C, do you recall that that's on the I guess, left side of the garage?
Left side of the garage.
Okay. In that area, A, B, and C, did you find any altered stains?
Yes, in areas A and B.
Okay. At this time, Your Honor, state would offer states 31. I'm not sure if there's an objection.
Is that the disc?
Yes.
No objection.
Okay.
Stage 31 will be admitted as a full exhibit.
Thank you. Sir, I'm going to ask you to draw your attention to the screen behind you. May I just inquire of the court and the parties if other TVs are on? In States 31, File 1, by Cancer, I'm just going to ask you some questions if you can. Picture 1. When you said A, B, in areas A and B, is an area A depicted in that photograph?
Yes.
Is that the area that you're talking about?
Area A, yes.
Thank you. And photograph 2, did you find any altered stains in this area or depicted in that photograph?
There were altered stains or swipes located in the left portion of area A as we're looking at this picture, left central for the record.
Okay. I'm going to show you picture 3. Can you describe what's on picture 3, please?
So in picture 3, relative to the central part of the picture, the red portion of the stain that is on the surface, this blood-like stain, is characteristic of a swipe mark, which the characteristics there are relevant to movement between the blood source and the surface, striations within the stain, sometimes diminished volume, and sometimes an edge, a trailing or leading edge that is feathered in some way.
And picture 4, sir, you mentioned area B as well. Is that contained in picture 4?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And picture 5, what is that a picture of, sir?
This is this closer up picture of the central, say central southern portion of area B. Within this portion is a blood-like stain that has swipe characteristics again, lighter in color, striations located throughout the stain, and some other movement relative to the floor of the garage in the center right-hand portion of the picture.
Would you mind, sir, Your Honor, may I ask him to go up to the screen, please, and point out to what he's talking about? And I'm going to scroll into this as I can. Can you just explain and perhaps point out on the photograph what you're talking about when you say?
You can go to the screen, thank you.
So I'm referencing this area here in terms of discoloration with indications of movement going from top right to bottom left of the screen. Direction is not implied. There are striations located within this stain, meaning lines or essentially parallel lines, which is another indication of movement.
Thank you, sir. And just briefly, going back to the picture 4, where was that contained in this photograph or that position?
That is near this L bracket right here.
Which would be the upper right corner of the photograph?
So
About
central, slightly to the right.
central to the right. Thank you, sir. Okay. Now, with respect to picture 6, is that a similar picture to what we just went through?
This is the same
Okay.
same area, different orientation of the picture.
Okay. And area C, sir, did you find any altered stains in C?
Not that had characteristics related to the blood.
Okay. And with respect to this picture, did you find any altered stains on that is depicted in picture 8?
Not altered, but a transfer stain was located on the garage door in picture 8.
Okay. Picture 9, sir, when you say transfer stain, would you mind getting up and perhaps explaining what you mean?
This is a closer up picture of the second panel of the garage door on the left-hand side from the photograph we just looked at. There's a light reddish discoloration here and here. Within this stain, there's no indications of movement on that surface, which would be a transfer characteristic. In other words, a bloodstained surface contacted this area and then was removed. This top stain has slight characteristics of a swipe mark, particularly the top right portion of this picture has a feathered edge, which is some indication of movement relative to this stain here.
Thank you, sir. Now, with respect to area G, did you also examine that area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you examine area G when the Range Rover was in the garage?
Yes.
Okay, did you ever examine area G when the Range Rover was removed?
No.
Okay, did you review the area G with the Range Rover removed through any photographs or any other documentation done by other officers?
Yes.
And what was that documentation, by the way?
That was photographs.
Okay. Now, in area G, did you find any altered stains?
Yes, there was an altered swipe stain in area G.
Okay. What is a spatter stain?
A spatter stain is a blood stain that results from an airborne blood droplet that is created when external force is applied to liquid blood. So while that definition tells you what it is, kind of through analysis here, we analyze or characterize or classify based on characteristics. So a spatter stain typically is circular or elliptical in shape, and usually smaller, but it doesn't have to be small.
And do you utilize spatter stains in your analysis or your reconstruction?
There were spatter stains in the scene, so I did utilize them.
Okay. With respect to area G, actually, if you take a look, this is file 2 on states 31, picture 1. I'm going to draw your attention and scroll up a little, sir. Do you see down here with the pink arrow with the white marker and my cursor's on? What is that?
So that's an altered stain that contains wipes and swipes in area G. It's approximately adjacent to the rear left rear passenger door of the
Could
Land
you
Rover.
just go up and explain or maybe show where the wipe and where swipe is and maybe just explain a little bit about what the difference is?
So just within this pattern, we see a darker area here. There's some longitudinal lines running, let's say left to right across this picture. Then we have indications of movement running top to bottom on this picture. A solid blood stain here that tapers off. Stains here that have essentially a void in them, which just indicates movement up and down and then back and forth, essentially here relative to this picture. There's also some diagonal striations or indications of movement from the top left to the bottom right, not implying direction of which it's moving, just for reference for the picture. Sometimes, at least in literature, this may be called a smear, where there's multiple direction alteration to a blood stain.
Thank you, sir. And what about drip stains?
Drip stains result from a blood drop that accumulated and fell due to gravity. So there's no other force acting on a drip stain other than gravity.
Did you find any drip stains in area G?
There was one drip stain that was presumptive positive for blood in area G.
And I'm going to show you picture 3, sir. Do you recognize what's on that photograph?
Yes.
What is that?
That's a photograph. If we're facing the into the garage or facing the house to the right of the stairs, there are four circular stains there, characteristic of drips on the concrete to the right of the stairs as we're looking at the picture.
I'm going to draw your attention to photo 4. If you could just describe that, sir.
That's a drip stain that consists of its perimeter characteristics. So the central part of that stain has been removed.
A lot of
the
that
perimeter
does
we can
come
see
back
is relatively
as
circular,
Jenniferdulos.
meaning that the drop fell due to gravity and impacted the ground. The size of that drop in this is approximately 8 to 10 millimeters, which is average size for a drip stain. But in this case, we just have essentially a perimeter stain where the central part has been removed.
How does a perimeter stain happen?
That could be perimeter stain can result from a drying artifact, blood dries essentially from the outside in. So the perimeters remain, the central part becomes flaky and can be removed easily. Or it could be that that was a wet blood stain that had partially dried, leaving the perimeter characteristics, and something removed the central portion from it.
Now, you said you weren't there for when the vehicle was removed, but did you examine the photographs afterwards?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I'm going to draw your attention to this group down here, if you could see my cursor, and one up on the upper right. And
Could we just clarify which vehicle we're talking about?
oh, the Range Rover, I'm sorry. Is this the middle bay, sir, when the Range Rover was removed?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to picture 6.
There really is, like, when you think that it's spattered
And
everywhere.
did you examine this photograph, sir, as
Yep.
part of your analysis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, could you describe what these markings are? And perhaps actually, I'm sorry, if I can go to picture 7. Is it do you see the label on picture 6? I'm sorry, is this GE1, GE2, and so forth?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, now picture 7, GE1, right above GE1. Could you describe that, please, to the jury?
Yes, so what's depicted there is a blood-like spatter stain. The characteristic of the stain, we can see it has an elliptical shape. This stain is very long and thin, so it has a long axis and a short width. We can also observe in this stain that, Your Honor, is it okay?
It's better if you approach the screen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So in relation to this picture, this stain is left to right. We have an elliptical shape, very long and thin. This stain is approximately 1 millimeter in width. We measure blood stains, or particularly elliptical stains, just according to width in terms of reference. It's 1 millimeter. That's about the width of a dime, just for reference. A long axis that's long and thin. And then to the right side of the stain, we have a thinning portion, which essentially we refer to as a tail. And then there's a small blood stain that has detached from this tail that's located further to the right. So based on the characteristics that this is a elliptical stain, which is small in size, that's characteristic of the spatter stain. So blood that's been put into flight by an external force that landed on this surface here. We can tell the direction that this stain was deposited based on the edge characteristics of essentially the tail of the stain, or the trailing edge. Where we have a tail, particularly on this one, this indicates that the spatter stain was traveling, in this case, from the left of the picture towards the right-hand side of the picture. Sometimes with other spatter stains, you would have trailing edge disruptions that were like a scalloped shape, like the edge of a scallop shell, or small spines that come off the end. So that's really a result of blood impacting the surface, adhering to the surface, inertia carrying the blood drop forward in the direction that it was traveling in, and then surface tension arresting the blood drop as it lost inertia, which causes the disruptions and the characteristics that are on the trailing edge of the stain. So when we look at this, we know that it came from this picture from the left to the right.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, it is 1 o'clock. Do you wish to?
We are going to stand in our lunch and recess, and lunch and recess will be a little longer.
Okay. How much longer? How much longer? There we are. That much longer. Come on.
32, if 30 on the record was who was full, could we make that ID and 32 be full?
I mean, I will not object to, for the record, of just
Oh
replacing
my.
Or we could do
the
that.
one subject to with the new one, so we don't have to worry about it accidentally. You know, it's a very long report, which I'm not objecting to. It's for the record, it's, gosh, it's, 32 pages. So I have no objection. They want to take back the one that's just.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Please be seated. Thank you.
Before the jury comes out and our client is being summoned, I know that after that, there's going to be a couple of brief witnesses, at least one brief witness, evidence collection officer that collected evidence in Hartford. I have no objection to that. What I'm going to object to, and I don't know how far the state wishes to go, they found things of evidentiary value and collected it. Then she's going to ask, why did you collect that? Which raises not only the age-old hearsay question, but the relevance question. The fact that police decided to collect something can only be based on hearsay of what other people told them, and why they did that is irrelevant to the case. And there's a million cases on that. I don't have it to cite right now, but there's no need for them to explain in hearsay terms why a police officer collected a piece of evidence any more than it says, well, I read it in a warrant that a judge signed and it was probable cause or whatever the reason is. They brought out the fact that their interest turned to Hartford. It's going to have something to do with collecting videos from Albany Avenue in Hartford. And that, I have no objection to any of that. But if they go, why did we want to, you know, oh, well, we saw a truck and we heard that this was related to Jenniferdulos. That's the hearsay that I would object to. And it's not relevant that he was told that as a reason.
Well, first,
Everything he
the court just wants to get an idea of the schedule for today. How much longer do you think you have with Colonel Davison?
I have one photograph and a couple pictures, Your Honor. I'm sorry, one photograph, one picture, a couple questions,
Hey,
nothing more.
there.
I'm gonna end that with Lieutenant Colonel Davison. With respect to I have two witnesses. I think with the length of time, I had three, but I don't think we're gonna get to the third. The two witnesses are Sergeant Vantreska and then Mike Fitzsimon. Retired trooper Fitzsimon collected a video. He's going to discuss what he collected, authenticate the video, as well as explain why he went to that particular place and what he saw, and then what he did after that. I think that's perfectly within his rights to say why he did something. I think that's very clear in the code of evidence that an individual can testify that because they were told to some information, they made an analysis and interpreted it and went and did something off of it. I think that's very clear as to why it's there. Now, I'm a little unsure as to whether counsel is objecting at this point to that question, or is he objecting to the officer then, I guess, detailing what he saw on the screen and then what the next steps he did and the reasons why he did that. They're two different things and two different analysis. And I do have cases that allow both.
Well, before we even reach that, Attorney Schoenhorn has the opportunity to cross-examine Colonel Davison.
Yes.
So are we even going to get to those witnesses today?
Yes, we will. I maybe have 15 minutes of cross-examination. So I have a couple of questions. I'll just hold a piece of paper. It's only like a couple of lines per page. So, I waste paper, but I didn't write a lot of them.
Well, rather than try to address the hearsay concerns now, we can just bring the jury back in and conclude with the direct examination of Colonel Davison.
Thank you.
You can bring the jury back in, please.
This guy is just whiny, hey? Like, I wonder if she's enjoying her lawyer, her happy lawyer. Right, Tony? Yep, well said.
Will counsel stipulate, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Colonel, you may be seated.
May I inquire, Lieutenant Colonel?
Yes.
Thank you. Lieutenant Colonel, I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions. There's actually only 2 more photographs I have. Do you recall in the right, I guess the right bay of the garage, were there garbage cans in that garage?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you examine or have an opportunity to look at those garbage cans?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you determine or analyze them and see if there was any, I guess, altered stains or transferred stains or any of the stains that you were discussing today?
Yes, there were blood stains on parts of the garbage can.
Okay, I'm going to show you. Out of file 7, please, picture 23. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes, ma'am.
You could go up if you can. If that's okay, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Sir, are there any transfer stains, or perhaps you could just describe it?
So this photograph is of the, say, if we're facing the garbage cans, it's the right garbage can, so the one closest to the garage door. Marked here by the square or rectangular white marker is a transfer stain that contains some defined edges, some voids within those edges in somewhat elliptical shapes, which is as characteristic of a pattern transfer.
And with respect to picture 25, sir?
Picture 25 is the left garbage can, so the one further away from the garage door. In the center portion of this photograph, just above the upper white rectangle is a transfer stain. And in the lower portion of the picture, just above the lower white rectangle is a transfer stain, small.
Thank you, sir. You can have a seat. And I have nothing further. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel.
Thank you. Cross-examination, please.
Thank you.
I don't know what the hell that guy thought about anything. Love the law, maybe?
I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions so I understand what you do and what you did in this situation. I take it that when you're doing trajectory and looking at the pattern, you are using some kind of math to decide an angles back to a certain point. Is that a fair sort of common lay concept of what you're trying to do?
Yes, sir. The angles related to coming back are the impact angles where the blood drop impacted. Those are utilized to determine that area. Yes.
And when you talk about impact, could that be close to what you referred to as the area of convergence?
The area of origin, sir.
Area of origin, yes.
They could be close together, yes.
And I want to just call up a couple of pictures that you looked at already in folder 3. Could I have, let's start with 18, please. And if you'll just turn around, unless you can see it right there, and I don't know if this screen is on, but if you look at 18, you don't have to get up because I have this little device here, but
Alrighty.
just make sure it's on. Okay. If you look behind you, you use this tripod device to come up with a point of, that you refer to as a area of convergence. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's marking it. Yes, sir.
All right. And it's, if you could call up the next photograph, please, 19, please. So there's a little bit closer up of the same, essentially the same angle, camera angle, correct?
Yes,
So if we look at this white device in the middle, that's located in the middle of this tripod, is this the general area that you determined to be the area of convergence?
Yes, sir.
And so that we're clear from this image, which is in folder 3, it's number 19, referring to an.
So with that said, there is, Dulos, he deleted himself a few weeks after he got charged. But there is a fellow, he was the lawyer to Dulos. His name is Kent Mahiney. Now, he is also facing charges on conspiracy as far as this case goes. Why we haven't heard much about this guy is a very good question, because we just learned this yesterday with Tony doing some research.
Area that's to the left of the driver's door of the Range Rover, correct?
Yes.
That's a Range Rover, the black vehicle, right? Am I correct? You know that?
Yes.
All right. So, and that Range Rover is parked immediately in front of, it looks like some stairs going up into the home itself. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And several of the pictures that we looked at up close showed drops that had been, according to you, dispersed onto the side of this Range Rover, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if we were to assume that those red spots were blood, you would trace them back to this general area of convergence here, correct?
Not on that vehicle, sir.
Not from that
Not
vehicle?
from that vehicle.
Okay. From what was on the floor?
Correct.
Okay. And if I'm also understanding you correctly, the some of the pictures you showed us, and I'm not going to go to those pictures, did show some pattern splatter underneath that vehicle, correct?
That vehicle.
That vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And that suggested to you that the point of origin, if you will, of the blood was either equal to or below the level of that vehicle, correct?
Yes, the area of origin below.
Right. So at least in layman's term, close to the garage floor.
Correct.
You also assume, well, let me actually go to the next, could you go to 20, please, for a second? And I just want to ask you, so this is a different view of the same vehicle. This is the opposite side of the garage, correct?
Yes, sir.
So this photograph was taken with the photographer's back to the wall where the door to the house is, right?
Correct.
And the other pictures were taken, from what I can tell, somewhere over here by the middle garage bay door, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, if I were to zoom in, you did not put the yellow tape down on this, did you, yourself?
No.
Were you present when that was done?
No.
It was done before you got there,
Correct.
right? So if you could just zoom in on this tape here. You recognize this as the kind of evidence tape that's used often in analysis by the detectives that do the evidence collection, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if I'm counting this correctly, this yellow tape this is inches and not centimeters, am I right?
Inches, right.
So I just count across, could you zoom out slightly, please? If we use this pink, do you know what this pink line is over here? On the right, for the record, I'm just referring to a pink line that we see that sort of crosses the yellow tape on the right. If you would zoom out again so maybe the witness can see it a little bit better. Does that help you indicate what it is?
Yes, sir.
All right, could you just tell the jury what that is?
That's one of the strings that represents the trajectory of the spatter stain on the floor.
Okay, so, and that is going to a spot on the floor, is that right? Somewhere that's now to the right out off the side of this
Oh
photograph,
my
right?
God, this man.
Now, if you look at the back of this photograph, although it's not measured specifically,
Jesus,
where the tripod
kidding
is
me.
set up and where the area of convergence
Jose.
is here is just to the right of the center of the wall that separates the garage bay to the right to the the garage bay in the middle to the garage bay on the left, and of course I'm referring to it from the outside, so we're looking at it backwards. So if this is a bad question. Let me start over. All right. You agree that the Range Rover was parked in the center bay of that garage?
Yes.
And if we're orienting the garage from outside the garage looking in, the center would be to the left of the
diarrhea
of the Range Rover, correct?
I'm not sure I understand the center.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The center bay where the Range Rover is would in fact be to the right of the empty garage bay that we see in this photograph. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. I'm not, ambidextrous, but I'm getting my two directions mixed up. So do you know how wide the wall was between the two bays?
No, sir. Not to my recollection.
Do you know if anyone had specifically taken measurements of that width?
I'm not sure. It may be in the sketch map.
Okay. The reason I'm asking you is for deciding that the blood splatter pattern that you saw on the Suburban, you had to assume that the Suburban was parked in that left garage bay, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you did that because when you first observed the Suburban, where was it?
Well, I first observed it at New Canaan Police Department.
So it had already been moved from the location where it apparently had been found by the New Canaan Police, right?
Right.
And it had been moved after certain state police detectives had also looked at it, right?
Yes, sir.
And you did report, you did indicate in your report that at the location where the Suburban was found on May 24th, that no evidence on the vehicle of blood staining was reported. Is that correct?
Right.
And you observed it at the headquarters where it was taken. It was taken by some kind of tow vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
When you examined the Suburban, thank you, you can take down that picture right now, please. Thank you. When you examined the Suburban, you noticed that there was, I'll call it a similar type of spatter that traveled from the one direction towards the rear of the vehicle. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you also observed some spatter underneath that vehicle as well, the Suburban we're talking about now, right?
Correct.
So your conclusions with regard to how that spatter ended up on the Suburban was consistent with your previous conclusion that the area of origin was close to the cement floor, correct?
Yes.
And again, that assumes that the Suburban was parked, I guess, in a straight line, pulled straight into that garage?
Facing the house, yes.
If the car had been parked on an angle, like pulled in, but then pulled to the left, so it was on a sort of diagonal somewhat in the garage, would that have changed your analysis or not?
It would depend on the severity, but I don't think so, sir.
All right. I'm going to ask you some questions about some of these, you called it transfer patterns that you saw in the some of the photographs. And I'm just going to call up one. Would you please call up from folder 7, number 18, please? You recall being asked about this by Ms. Manning, correct?
I don't believe we reviewed that one, sir.
You did not review this one?
I skipped that one.
Oh, you skipped it.
You can go.
All right. Do you recall that this is one of the images that you saw in the on the garage floor as part of your analysis?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions. You indicated as to some of the other, I just chose this one. There were a couple of others we looked at towards the end here where there was like a diamond and some lines as well that you referred to also as a transfer pattern, correct?
Yes.
And you said it was consistent with, or might be a shoe print, is that right?
I believe I said it was suggestive or characteristic of a footwear.
Okay, now you're not an expert in shoe pattern or shoe sole patterns, correct?
No, sir, I'm not.
So if I asked you what kind of shoe that might be, you don't know?
I do not know.
You can't tell the size of the shoe from this image?
No, not as a footwear examiner.
You can't tell if it's a male or female shoe?
No.
Or even what kind of footwear it is?
No.
In your review of the various transfer patterns, did you see any tire tread patterns that appeared to be stained similarly to what we're seeing in this image?
Not tire treads.
None at all.
No.
And is that something you would at least, if you had seen it, you would have noted that?
Yes, sir.
Of course. Okay, that can be taken.
The clearance between the, you did do a measurement, or at least obtain measurements of the clearance between the bottom of the door of both vehicles, the running board and the ground, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the ground clearance, as I understand on the Suburban, was 11.5 inches, is that right?
That's correct, sir.
And you indicated that the some of the blood, some of the spatter stain you saw was below, had traveled upwards to the underside of that vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
So would that suggest, or at least would you have the opinion then, that the source of that spatter was below 11.5 inches, so the trajectory would allow it to go under the running board?
Right.
God, man, I have so much to say.
I just have a few more questions. You looked at a number of photographs that you said appeared to be white or swipe or wipe type stains. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You did not yourself determine whether all of those white marks were in fact a blood-like substance, did you?
No.
You don't know which ones were tested for that and which ones were not, right?
I do.
All right. But were all of the ones that you talked about today all tested for blood?
No, sir.
And were all of them tested even for DNA presence?
No, sir.
Can you tell from
We
the
don't
photographs
like
that
them?
we watched
Imagine the
what
jury.
kind of instrument was used to perform that wiping?
No, sir.
So you can't say whether it was a sponge?
No.
Or a mop?
No.
Or a piece of cloth?
No.
You would have to examine a piece of cloth or a sponge or a mop just to maybe make that comparison?
Right. Yes, if there's something to compare it to.
And there was nothing about the way it was wiped. You can't tell if the person was left-handed or right-handed.
No,
Is that
sir.
right? If I could just have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Oh, yay. It could be done. Peace out. God, man.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there a redirect?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
There we are. There we are. Gotta be like, right?
Your Honor, may I just approach the clerk and return? Your Honor, the state would call Sergeant Mantresta.
Oh. My bad. Damn good question.
Have a moment with counsel.
Yes.
I think you're right. Because, I mean, you gotta really not like him. If all of us all don't like him, just my thought. Got a cop, walks like a cop, looks like a cop, smells like a cop. I bet it's a cop. Absolutely.
Your Honor, may we have a sidebar?
Yes. So you may be seated. No, you can be seated. Thank you.
What do you guys think? Cop? Yeah, oh my word. Let's see how long this is. Maybe it's, no audio. All right. I'm not really sure. We must be, what, caught out? Really? Well, I'm pretty sure the defendant is. She's always got earbuds in. It's like, can't, can't handle the sound of her own lawyer? I got you. Oh my God, he looks like a Muppet. Oh my God. I'm not sure, but probably gonna end up being a cop of some sort, I'm thinking. Fantastic Four missing a thing. A thing. All righty. Hmm. Well. Like, I think we're pretty much caught up, right? Are we? Yeah. All right. Up to speed. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Oh. Oh, that's funny. Oh, Beaker. Yes. Hey, thanks, Tracy. I appreciate that, friends. Thank you very, very much.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Please state your name and spelling for the record.
Sergeant Kenneth Metruska, KENNETVENTRESCA.
Sergeant, you may be seated.
May I inquire, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Sergeant Ventresca, who do you work for, sir?
The Connecticut State Police,
And how long have you been employed by the Connecticut State Police?
18 years.
And your current rank is sergeant?
Yes, Sergeant.
And are you assigned to a particular division?
Yeah, right now I'm assigned to the Connecticut State Police Computer Crimes Unit.
How long have you been there?
Since September of this past year, September of 2023.
In 2019, what was your assignment?
I was assigned as the Supervisor Sergeant of the Western District Major Crime Troop G Bridgeport Field Office.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
And just to clear, is that with respect to investigations or crime scene analysis?
No, separate from crime scene, we're the investigation side.
Could you please discuss a little bit about your training and experience with the Connecticut State
Yep.
Police?
So,
Anything is
I graduated the academy in
appreciated. Your presence
2006.
is appreciated.
Roughly 8 years of patrol down in Fairfield County. Detective in the Southbury area. Got promoted to sergeant. Back to Troop G for patrol sergeant duties, and then I tested for major crime in 2015 and made the rank of detective sergeant. And I was assigned to Troop B in North Canaan, and then I was transferred down to Troop G in Bridgeport and to run that office.
Could you briefly describe some of your duties and responsibilities as a sergeant at the Western District Major
Yep,
Crime?
just accounting for personnel, signing leads, overseeing time schedules, ensuring that reports are completed in a timely manner.
No.
Reviewing of reports and such like that.
Were you also involved in investigations themselves?
Yes.
Did you assist other agencies?
Yes, we did.
And when you would assist other agencies, what would that look like?
Depending on the agency, depending on the request, most of the time it was for bringing in experience and manpower. So typically, smaller towns, if they get certain types of crimes that they need assistance, will come out and assist with canvassing and interviews and all that stuff.
And with respect to being a sergeant in 2019, specifically around May of 2019, how many individuals did you supervise?
5 detectives in my office.
And that was out of the Troop G office?
The Troop G office.
Was there another troop that handled major crimes or investigations in the Western District?
Yeah, there is,
Right
you
to
have
the defense
field office in
check
Troop A in
form,
South
though.
Barry, field office Troop G in North Canaan, and a field office in
Oh,
Troop L in Litchfield.
no.
Now, were you called in to assist in the investigation into the disappearance of Jenniferdulos in May of 2019?
Yes.
How did you get involved?
So initially, our crime van personnel rolled out as an assist. I guess there was a scene in the garage. Upon our crime van arriving on scene, our crime van personnel reached out to me, and then I called out my detectives, and we went out to the scene.
And in the time following May 24th, 25th time period, can you explain the Connecticut State Police role in relation to that investigation?
Right. So initially, we got called in to assist in a missing persons investigation. So for the first few days, we were assisting New Canaan Police Department with generating leads, neighborhood canvassing, various police functions, because again, we're able to bring the manpower.
Now, with respect to that time period, that early, about a week or so after May 24th, did you take any investigative steps?
You're talking about a week after the initial call out?
Let me be a little more specific on that. The following weekend, around May 27th, 28th time period, what did you do?
All right. So that weekend, I'll start with the 25th. We were at the New Canaan Police Department. We were assisting with neighborhood canvasses, trying to piece this missing person investigation together. On that Sunday, I believe it was the 26th, Officer Patton with the New Canaan Police Department had contacted the Connecticut State Police regarding some preliminary phone locations regarding Fotis handset, his phone, his cellular phone.
And did he inform you of those preliminary locations that were found on the phone?
I can't recall if he personally informed me or it came from one of my detectives, but I can tell you that Officer Patton informed the Western District Major Crime Squad.
And what was it about the location on the phone? Information?
So I was advised on that Sunday, the 26th, it was very brief. It's very preliminary, but it's basically Fotis's handset, which is his cell phone. I'm going to keep saying handset, is the day of his wife's disappearance, which was May 24th. It remained in the Farmington area for most of the day. I remember there was talk of probably a bunch of missed calls.
Your Honor, of talk or anything else, I haven't objected to this.
And I don't claim a lot of that. If I can direct him to a specific part. Sir, with respect to location data at around 7 o'clock p.m.
So location data around 7 o'clock p.m. Put Mr. Dulos' handset up in the Albany Avenue, Hartford area.
And
for May 24th, the evening of the 24th.
For the evening of the 24th? Okay, and what was that time?
It was approximately 7 p.m., 7:10-ish.
And why did you take note of that?
Well,
Well, the question is, for what reason did Sergeant Ventresca take note of the fact that the cellular phone owned by Fotis was in the area of Albany Avenue at 7 or around 7 p.m.? Overruled.
Can you just repeat it again for me? No.
Why did you take note of the fact or the information that you had received that Fotis handset was in the area of Albany Avenue around 7 p.m. on 5/24?
All right, well, first and foremost, there's a missing person, and we're 48 hours into this. We haven't located her, so there's an exigency component on that. Secondly, Albany Avenue, Hartford area, it's a rather high crime area, the city of Hartford. But regardless, regarding those handset locations, we are going to go canvass the area. We're going to look for any videos or any witnesses in the area and see what his business is there in that area. We don't know of any real estate properties he's already owned. We know that 80 Mountain Spring was a house for sale. We know that he lived on 4 Jefferson Crossing. So we didn't know what business he had doing in Hartford.
Well, let me ask you about that. In the course of those 48 hours, did you look into what Fotis did for a living?
Yes.
And what did you learn?
looked into the four group business. We went on their website. We saw the employees. We saw houses for sale.
And because of what you saw, did you take any actions?
Yeah. So on Sunday, once we received the locations, I called out one of my detectives and we traveled actually to the Farmington area and Hartford area.
What day did you go to the Farmington area?
Sunday, May 26th.
And where specifically did you go?
So Sunday was I call it a cursory canvas. Again, me being the sergeant, it's trying to get leads for the detectives. So we traveled to Farmington. We traveled down Jefferson Crossing, which for Jefferson Crossing, where Mr. Dulos had lived. We traveled to 80 Mountain Spring. Didn't do anything at those residences other than a drive-by, and then traveled to Hartford and just drove Albany Avenue.
Okay. With respect, you mentioned 80 Mountain Spring.
Yep.
Why did you go Why did you go there?
Well, 80 Mountain Spring was a piece of property that Mr. Dulos was selling, or the Ford Group was selling. And also, too, there were, going back to those phone locations, there was some activity.
Well, the question was, why did you go to 80 Mountain Road? And the response was, it was a piece of property that Mr. Dulos had put up for sale. The court did not know what was coming next. So the court does not know beyond that what the response was.
If I may, Your Honor, I believe he also stated that because he started to get into something with respect to the phone, the handset information, and that's when counsel objected.
Well, perhaps it would be better if you just ask another question.
That's fine, sir. Actually, did you go to 80 Mountain Spring Road?
We did. We drove through 80, past 80 Mountain Spring, yes.
If I may, just have a moment with counsel.
Oh? What you doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, with respect to state offered 33, there are, with respect to items 1 through 7 at this time, I believe there's an agreement with respect to full. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank
So
you.
States 33 will be admitted as a full exhibit.
With respect to 1 through 7.
They're photographs 1 through 7.
Thank you.
They need a little development.
Sergeant PINTREST, I'm going to ask you to take a look behind you. This is States 33, photograph 1. Do you recognize the area or what is depicted in that photograph?
I do. It's a Jefferson Crossing, kind of running across the screen, and Eli Road, which turns into Deer Cliff, kind of going up and down the street.
Well, Sergeant PINTREST can approach the screen.
Thank you, Your
with-
Honor.
Okay, so you have Jefferson Crossing there, Deer Cliff, which turns into Eli Road over here.
And at what point does Deer Cliff turn into Eli?
I want to say right just north of Fort Jefferson Crossing,
And when you say,
assuming that's true north right there.
do you know what residence was Photos Dulos's?
Fort Jefferson Crossing.
That's 4 Jefferson Crossing. And the other houses around it, do you know the addresses?
Yeah, this is 2 Jefferson Crossing, 1 Jefferson Crossing. And then I could tell you that that's 77 Eli Road right there.
And why do you point out 77 Eli Road?
I also had stopped at 77 Eli Road on that Sunday, the 26th.
Why did you stop on that road?
During our cursory canvas, driving down Eli, we noticed that there was a camera on one of the stone pillars outside of the residence, a really clear shot of the camera. Obviously, we knocked on the door, got consent from the owner to view that video. Ultimately, detectives went back up and seized video from the house.
You didn't seize that video?
No, it was like something with the size of the file that day. So we had to send detectives back up. We generated a lead and they went back up the following days.
Now, I'm going to show you picture 2. What is that a photograph of, sir?
The 4 Jefferson Crossing. Obviously, we have police cars in the driveway, but that's looks like 4 Jefferson Crossing.
And picture 3. Is 4 Jefferson Crossing on that map? No, it's.
Here's the view right there.
If I may, I'm gonna. Is it depicted on there? Is the one with the yellow?
Yeah, right here with the yellow. I mean, I'm assuming that's.
Yeah. And this is, you said Eli?
Yeah, Jefferson Crossing, Eli.
And where is Mountain Spring Road?
Mountain Spring Road is. Go down, oh, actually, you have a pivot. It's right over here, 80 Mountain Spring.
And did you go there as well?
Yes.
Okay. Show you picture 4.
Okay, that's 80 Mountain Spring.
And picture 5.
80 Mountain Spring.
Now, this sign out in front, what is that?
It appears to be, it looks like a 4-group promo for sale sign that would be sitting outside of a residence that's for sale with a business name on it.
Was that on, in that position when you went there that day?
No, I don't remember this one in particular because I didn't go up into the property, but however, at the base of the driveway, I do remember seeing a similar type signage.
Now, you can have a seat, sir.
Okay.
You indicated as well that you went to Albany Avenue in Hartford?
Yes.
Where in Albany Avenue in particular? Anywhere?
In the area of Green Street.
And actually, I'm going to ask you to get up again if I can. Thank you. Picture 6. If you can please, do you recognize that map?
Yeah, this 44 Albany Avenue, Albany Ave right there. Yep.
And we keep saying Albany Avenue. What town or city is that?
Hartford.
And with respect to, you mentioned, well, strike that. Where did you go?
We just came up Deer Cliff. We came up to 44. We just initially that Sunday we just took a cursory canvas down Albany Avenue. Ultimately, we went back Monday. If you'll get into that now.
Well, let me ask you this. On that day, did you walk or drive?
We drove.
Okay. Why did you do that? Why did you do a cursory search?
We're just looking for mainly any video cameras in the area, or maybe we're looking for a missing person as well. So we're really just in the early stages of this. It's very fresh. Our purpose of this is to then generate leads to have detectives go out and start pulling videos and, interviewing possible witnesses.
And you went the next day as well?
Yes, so the 27th, correct.
Who did you go with?
Detective Frechette. And I took Officer Deke from the New Canaan Police Department back up there.
Detective Frechette, is he a trooper? Detective?
State police detective at the time. He's now a state police sergeant.
Was he one of those individuals that you supervised?
Yes.
Okay. Now, where did you go anywhere specific?
We actually drove that day. You want me to just talk about Hartford that specifically?
Yes,
so that day
please.
we drove back to the Green Street area.
Is Green
304 Albany Avenue, right on the corner. There's a Jamaican restaurant.
Green Street?
Green
Start
Street.
with that. Can you point, is Green Street depicted in that map?
Where's Green? Right down here, actually. Right there.
Okay. I'm gonna scroll in if I can. Did you point to this area?
Yeah, right in this area.
Okay. Was there an address in particular you were looking for?
Yeah, 304 Albany Avenue.
And what was in 2019 at, or what was the address?
Thank you.
304?
Next, thank you very
Restaurant
much
was called,
for
it
membership.
was Benji's Jamaican Restaurant.
If you look at that map now, is that in the same area of the Island Fish Head Jamaican restaurant?
Yeah, it appears to be just a new business with the same building. I can assume from the map.
Okay. Now, what did you find when you went to the Green
Yeah.
Street Benji's area?
There was a video camera affixed to the front, I want to say the front awning of the business, in clear view, and it appeared to have a clear shot of
Welcome.
Albany Avenue and probably a little bit on Green Street.
I can, I'm going to show you 7. Sir,
Yeah,
do you
so-
recognize that?
Right there, camera, and that would be Albany Ave.
And I'm sorry, you pointed to,
The camera, right here,
I want to
and then
scroll.
Albany Avenue.
Are you pointing to the white dot on the awning in the middle of the screen?
Yes, right on the white dot, or coming off the awning, yes.
Okay. Now, was that restaurant open when you got there?
No, it was Memorial Day and the restaurant was closed.
In the course of your investigation, you mentioned you looked up the properties for Jefferson 80 Mountain. Did you look up anything else about FORBES? Well,
I mean, just investigative background information, through law enforcement databases, and again, social media searches.
did you determine or look into how many vehicles he
Yes.
operated?
Yeah, at the time we knew of roughly, you have the Suburban, the Jeep, Raptor.
Actually, if you could sit down, sir, if
Okay.
you don't mind. Now, you said a Suburban.
Yep, there was a Suburban registered to Mr. Fotis or the Ford Group. I can't remember what the registrant was. We knew he had access to a black Ford Raptor. We also knew that there was a white Jeep Grand Cherokee and that they had access to, Mr. Dulos. And also there was we had information through our canvas.
Brown.
Says we had information, so it's calling for hearsay.
Well,
Oh, my God.
well,
Here we go.
we had information that, and then there was the objection. Where the information led would allow the hearsay to be skipped over.
If I may, Your Honor, perhaps I can ask it as just a general way. When you were looking for the video surveillance, what were some things that you were looking for?
You mean when I'm looking for the cameras or when I'm looking at video surveillance? I'm sorry.
If you're seeking video surveillance
Okay.
in this case, what are you looking to find?
You mean, is the question in general? It's kind of a vague
question.
Well, in this case,
In this case, sir, when you went to Benji's and you
Okay.
saw the camera and you wanted to see what was on that camera, what were you looking
Understandable.
at?
At that moment in time, we didn't have a specific vehicle we knew of Mr. Dulos driving that day. All we knew was his handset was in the area. So, and we're looking for any vehicle that he's associated with. So that would be the vehicles registered to him.
Oh, my
Were there other
God.
vehicles that were not registered to him but were associated with him
Yes.
that you were looking to find?
Yes.
What would that?
Okay, so
well, were there other vehicles
God.
that were not registered to him? Is that the question?
The
That you
question-
were also looking for?
Yes, Your Honor. And again, it's not offered for the truth of the matter here. It's not a statement. It's offered for the purposes of explaining his course of action in the course of the investigation. And it's not hearsay in the state's purview. The really only issue is relevance, and that I
They sure
think
were.
is
The two
very
he
probative of
borrowed.
what steps he took.
if it's not being offered for the truth and it's not relevant, there is a vehicle connected that is registered to Mr. Dulos. So I'm not sure, other than it's hearsay, that it would have any relevance here. The fact that he was looking for something doesn't make it less hearsay or less relevant.
Well, at this point, the breadth of the investigation involves a number of areas to explore. So at this point, the court understands the testimony to be, we weren't certain about certain things. So we looked at a number of things. So the court is going to overrule the objection.
You can answer the
Okay,
question.
could you just repeat it again? Sorry, I'll make sure I have it.
I will try. When you went to Benji's restaurant and you
Okay.
saw the camera, why was that important? What were you looking for
Well,
on that camera?
Well,
And perhaps I can narrow it a little further and just say, were you looking for any specific vehicles?
We were looking for any specific vehicles, and we're looking for Jenniferdulos.
Okay, let's talk about the vehicles. Start with that.
Okay.
What vehicles were you looking for?
At the time, off the top of my head, we had a black Ford Raptor. We had a white Jeep Grand Cherokee. We had a black Suburban. We also had that we knew of that there was an old Porsche. We didn't know if it was operable or not, but the Porsche, and also a red pickup truck, Toyota Tacoma.
Now, with respect to that red, well, I will withdraw that.
Okay.
So were you able to view video surveillance from Benji's restaurant that day?
No.
Why not?
Again, the restaurant was closed. It was Memorial Day.
So what did you do?
Judge drafted a lead, and I sent that lead to the Troop L office, specifically to go to 304 Albany Avenue. I outlined, an hour and a half window for the detective to go and pull video.
What's a lead?
Lead it's a command post style thing we do where you're really just tracking everything the detectives are doing in real time, because they're not sitting there typing reports yet. So it's just really tracking manpower. And then if new leads develop through witness interviews, we'll draft one up, and then it's accountability to assign leads to detectives as well.
And in the course of the early stages of your investigation, did you learn anything, whether or not anything had been seen off of the surveillance video of Benji's? Not saying what it was, just did you learn if anything had been capable of being retained?
Okay, yes, so detective.
So the answer is yes. Thank you.
And
So if that's the answer, is the objection withdrawn?
Is withdrawn, yes.
if I may, and again, we'll go slow without saying what you learned yet. Based on what you learned, did you take any action?
Yes, so the action I took was I contacted the Central District Major Crime Squad, and I had a detective go over to Hartford's C4, which is the Capital City Command Center with video surveillance.
Why would you do that?
Why?
Well, we have.
Before we proceed, perhaps it would be better for Sergeant Ventresca to explain what C4 is.
That's fantastic. Sir, what is C4?
Okay, so I don't, it's a Hartford Police, City of Hartford building. It's called, I believe, the Hartford City, Capital City Command Center, the 4 Cs. Again, in this center, there's several analysts. They have camera feeds throughout the city, so they're able to go back historically, roughly 30 days, and look throughout the city of vehicles and people driving by and all that stuff.
So what was it that you learned from Benji's camera that made you take the steps to contact C4?
Objection.
Ground.
Hearsay, and it's irrelevant. The fact that he saw something and gave the information to the authorities to follow up to the
Oh my
Capital
God.
City Command Center
Wow.
is what's relevant. And then if there's going to be video, it will be played. But to have him describe it is not the best evidence, and it's also hearsay.
Well, the court understands the question to be, from what you viewed on the video, what did you do? That's how the court understood the question.
If I may just clarify that briefly, Your Honor, it's what he learned from the Benji's video. I don't think there's a representation that he saw the video. I believe and if I may just offer proof here, representation that you received screenshots from the video. I just want to make that clear for the record.
Well, the question of the court would understand it is, from the screenshots that you received of the video, what did you do?
Yes, Your Honor.
So if that's going to be the question, the objection is overruled.
Thank you. From the screenshots of the video, sir, what did you do?
Contacted the Hartford C4.
And with respect to the screenshots, what was it that they contained that made you or contact C4 after you had viewed them?
Same objection. I thought the court had clarified.
Oh my God, man. Oh, look at him.
So the question now is, it concerns the content of the
Look at this
screenshot.
guy's face.
Yes, sir.
And the court understands the content of the screenshots are not just photos, correct?
It's a photograph of a screenshot of a video. So it's just a
It's a
photograph
screenshot
of
of a
the
video.
video. Yes.
So essentially, the objection is because it is a screenshot of a video, it is essentially, as the court understands it essentially is hearsay within hearsay. Is that the objection?
Yes, sir.
And
And
again, Your
counsel, you
Honor,
can respond.
the state's position is it is not even hearsay. The state's not offering it as a statement for the truth of the matter asserted. I'm offering it as it's something that Sergeant Ventresca received, looked at, and because he saw it, almost exactly the same information that he just testified to, that he researched FORBES, got information about the vehicles, got information about the property, and then drove up to look at the properties to see where it is. Now he's receiving another piece of information. It's a screenshot of a video. He's taking that, he's looking at it, he's determining the information and his investigative skill, which adequacy of the investigation is something that's relevant in this case, as well as any case. And he's interpreting that and taking steps to investigate. He has a right to explain the steps of his investigation. It is certainly not offered for the truth of what is contained in it. The state will present the officer who sees the video next, Your Honor, but this individual did not. So it is offered simply as a tool similar to the exact same information that he received with the vehicles.
Well, if the next witness who actually saw the video is to testify about what he saw in the video, it would seem to be, it has more of the tent and tenor of hearsay for that testimony to come through this witness.
Understood, Your Honor. I can definitely have that witness testify to what they saw in the video and what they conveyed to Sergeant Ventresca.
Well, we'll have to take that up on Monday
Thank you.
because it is now 4:46. And we are going to adjourn for the day. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention.
Smiles. Look at him.
We ask that you have a good evening and please try to avoid any media coverage about the case, and please avoid talking to anyone about the case or anyone talking to you about the case. Thank you.
This witness is awesome.
Sergeant, you may step down.
Sir.
Oh, we're looking at Monday next.
All right. This honorable school board not being adjourned until Monday at
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
All righty, there we go. No. Yeah, no doubt. Oh my God. So wasn't that something? Okay. Well, guys, that was that. So I'm looking here over the weekend. There's a lot to go over. We got Montgomery, we got the Treehouse, we got Sandra Birchmore, we have Richard Allen, and we got Yerman. So I'm going to do my absolute best to get as much of this out to you throughout the weekend. Depending on how it goes here, I might even do something later on tonight, depending on how things go. So let me know, you guys, what you think, because, oh my God, I was quite surprised to even have them back. I thought this was done. So guys, thanks again for being here with me. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.